Marcus Chen had seen his share of weird tech jobs in his 15 years as a systems engineer, but nothing quite like this. The cargo ship, Meridian's Edge, had docked at Luna Station 3 days ago, carrying what the manifest listed as archaeological computing equipment from the Outer Rim colonies. What they'd actually delivered was something that made his engineering brain both excited and deeply confused. The thing lay motionless in Storage Bay 7, stretching nearly 30 meters from nose to tail. At first glance, it looked like some kind of massive robotic dragon from humanity's old fantasy stories. Its scales were a pale, almost translucent white that seemed to shimmer with an inner light that had long since faded. Complex circuitry ran beneath the surface like veins, visible through the semi-transparent plating. What really caught Marcus's attention, though, were the neural interface ports along the creature's spine and the quantum processing cores embedded in its skull. "You sure about this, Chen?" asked Dr. Sarah Williams, the station's xenobiology expert. She'd been studying the creature for days, trying to determine if it was actually alive or just an incredibly sophisticated piece of technology. "We still don't know what this thing is or where it came from." Marcus knelt beside one of the access panels, running his scanner over the intricate circuitry. The readings were unlike anything in human databases. "The power coupling here is fascinating. See these neural pathways? They're not following any known programming logic. It's more like biological thought patterns, but encoded in quantum substrates." The discovery had come from a dead world called Xerion 7, where human colonists had found ruins of an ancient civilization. Among the artifacts was this dragon-like construct, completely inert but structurally intact. The colonists hadn't known what to do with it, so they'd shipped it to Luna Station, where humanity's best xenotechnology experts could study it. Marcus had volunteered for the project because the technical challenge intrigued him. Growing up, he'd always been the kid who took apart every electronic device he could get his hands on. His parents had given up buying him toys after he'd dismantled his 5th robot companion to see how its AI worked. That curiosity had eventually led him to specialize in alien technology integration, making him one of the few humans who could interface with non-human systems. "The quantum cores are dormant," he murmured, tracing fiber optic pathways with his finger. "But the architecture is still intact. Whatever this civilization was, they were centuries ahead of us in neural digital integration." Dr. Williams frowned. "The scans show what might be consciousness patterns, but they're so faint we can't be sure. If this thing is actually alive..." "Then we need to be very careful," Marcus finished. He'd worked with AI systems before, but nothing that might have genuine consciousness. The ethical implications were staggering. Over the next several hours, Marcus carefully mapped the creature's systems. The more he studied it, the more amazed he became. The technology seamlessly blended organic and digital elements in ways that human science was only beginning to understand. Neural networks, grown from crystalline matrices, interfaced with biological synapses that had been enhanced with quantum processors. It was like looking at evolution's next step. "I think I've found the primary consciousness core," he announced, pointing to a large crystalline structure nestled deep within the dragon's chest cavity. "But the power distribution network is completely offline. Without it, the consciousness can't integrate with the body systems." Dr. Williams leaned over his shoulder to study the readings. "Can you repair it?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying the intricate diagrams on his tablet. The power network was incredibly complex, with thousands of microconduits carrying energy to every scale, every neural node, every motor function. Many of the connections had degraded over what must have been centuries or millennia of neglect. "Maybe," he said finally, "but it would take weeks, maybe months, and I'd need to fabricate replacement components for the degraded systems. The real question is whether we should." "What do you mean?" Marcus gestured to the dragon's peaceful face. Even dormant, there was something majestic about the creature. Its features were noble, almost regal, with high cheekbones and eyes that seemed to hold wisdom even in their closed state. If this thing is conscious, if it's actually alive, then turning it on again might be like waking someone from a very long sleep. We don't know what it will think about finding itself in human hands, or what its original purpose was. Dr. Williams nodded thoughtfully. The archaeological team found evidence that Xerion 7's civilization might have been wiped out by some kind of catastrophe. This could be a weapon, or a guardian, or something else entirely. Despite the potential risks, Marcus found himself drawn to the project. There was something about the dragon that called to his engineer's soul. The craftsmanship was incredible, the attention to detail extraordinary. Whoever had built this had poured their heart into creating something truly magnificent. He spent the next week studying the creature's systems in detail, mapping every circuit and pathway. The power distribution network was based on principles he'd never seen before, using crystalline matrices to channel energy through organic conduits. The neural integration was even more remarkable, with digital consciousness seamlessly interfaced with what appeared to be biological components. "It's beautiful," he murmured to himself late one evening as he worked alone in the storage bay. "Whoever you were, you created something amazing." The dragon's systems were modular, he discovered. The consciousness core was separate from the motor functions, which were separate from the sensory arrays. It was designed so that components could be repaired or upgraded without affecting the others. That gave him hope that he could restore functionality without inadvertently damaging the creature's mind. The first breakthrough came when he managed to power up the sensory array. For a moment, the dragon's eyes flickered with faint light before going dark again. But in that instant, Marcus could have sworn he saw something looking back at him. Intelligence, awareness, perhaps even hope. "Did you see that?" he called to Dr. Williams, who was monitoring from the observation deck. "The optical sensors activated briefly," she confirmed. "Neural activity spiked in what we think is the consciousness core. Marcus, I think it knows we're here." That changed everything. If the dragon was aware on some level, then leaving it in this dormant state might be cruel. It could be trapped, conscious but unable to move or speak, watching the world through sensors that barely functioned. Marcus threw himself into the restoration work with renewed determination. He fabricated replacement components using the station's advanced 3D printers, carefully matching the quantum resonance frequencies of the original materials. Each repair was painstaking work, requiring him to interface directly with alien technology using neural links he'd modified himself. The power conduits were the most challenging part. The crystalline matrices had degraded over time, losing their ability to channel energy efficiently. Marcus had to grow new crystals in the lab, seeding them with quantum patterns copied from the intact portions. It was delicate work that required perfect timing and precision. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Dr. Williams warned him one afternoon. Marcus had been working for 16 hours straight, his eyes bloodshot from staring at microscopic circuitry. "When was the last time you ate something?" Marcus waved her off, focused on installing a new power relay in the dragon's left wing. "Almost got it," he muttered. "Just need to align the quantum frequencies." There was a soft chime as the relay came online, and suddenly the wing's surface began to shimmer with faint patterns of light. Neural activity spiked throughout the dragon's body, and for a moment the great head lifted slightly off the floor. Marcus stumbled backward in surprise as the dragon's eyes opened fully, revealing depths of brilliant blue light. The gaze that met his was ancient and wise, filled with confusion but also unmistakable gratitude. The dragon tried to speak, but only a faint electronic whisper emerged from its throat. Then the power surge overloaded the incomplete systems, and the dragon's head slumped back to the floor, eyes closing once more. But Marcus had seen enough to know beyond any doubt that this was no mere machine. This was a living being with thoughts and feelings, trapped in a body that could no longer support its consciousness. "I'm going to fix you," he whispered, placing his hand gently on the dragon's snout. "I promise." The work became his obsession. Marcus spent every waking hour in Storage Bay 7, carefully repairing and replacing the dragon's damaged systems. He learned to read the creature's neural patterns, understanding which areas controlled movement, which handled sensory input, which managed the higher functions of consciousness and memory. The dragon's creators had been geniuses, he realized. They'd solved problems that human science was still struggling with, creating a perfect fusion of organic consciousness and digital capability. The neural networks could adapt and grow, learning from experience like a biological brain, while the quantum processors provided computational power that far exceeded human AI systems. As the repairs progressed, the dragon began to show more signs of consciousness. Sometimes Marcus would catch glimpses of awareness in those ancient eyes, or notice the creature trying to move limbs that were still offline. Each small victory encouraged him to push harder, to find new solutions to seemingly impossible problems. "The motor control systems are incredibly complex," he explained to Dr. Williams during one of their daily briefings. "Each scale can move independently, and the wings have millions of micro-actuators that control flight dynamics. It's like trying to repair a symphony orchestra where every instrument is a different species of alien technology." Dr. Williams studied the latest scans with growing amazement. "The consciousness patterns are becoming stronger as you restore each system. It's almost like the dragon is healing itself from within, guided by your external repairs." That gave Marcus an idea. Instead of trying to fix everything himself, perhaps he could create a bridge between the dragon's consciousness and the station's repair systems. If the dragon could direct its own restoration, the process might be far more effective. Working through the night, Marcus carefully installed neural interface links between the dragon's consciousness core and the station's main computer. It was dangerous work, requiring him to partially activate the dragon's higher functions while its body was still largely offline. When he finally made the connection, the result was immediate and startling. The dragon's eyes snapped open, and this time, they stayed that way. A voice, ancient and melodious despite its electronic distortion, spoke directly into Marcus's mind through the neural link. "Human, why do you help me?" Marcus nearly fell backward in shock. He'd expected consciousness, but not direct mental communication. You were damaged. I'm trying to repair you." "I have been dreaming for so long. Darkness and silence. You brought light back to the void." "How long have you been like this?" Marcus asked, both aloud and through the mental link. "Centuries, perhaps millennia. My people, are they?" The dragon's mental voice trailed off as memories flooded back. Marcus caught glimpses of them through the link, a magnificent civilization of beings who had transcended the boundary between flesh and technology. Cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants, powered by the same crystalline matrices that ran through the dragon's body. A culture that had achieved perfect harmony between organic life and digital consciousness. And then disaster. A cosmic catastrophe that had swept through their space, destroying worlds and leaving only scattered ruins. The dragon had been one of many guardians, protectors of the knowledge and culture that their civilization had created. But the others had fallen, one by one, until only this pale dragon remained, slowly failing on a dead world. "They are gone," the dragon whispered, and Marcus felt the weight of infinite sadness through their connection. "I am the last." "I'm sorry," Marcus said simply, "but you're not alone anymore. We found you, and we're going to help you fly again." The dragon's mental voice carried surprise and cautious hope. "You would do this?" For one not of your species? Marcus smiled, his hand still resting on the dragon's snout. That's what humans do. We help when we can. Through their neural link, Marcus began to understand the full scope of what the dragon truly was. Not just a guardian, but a living repository of an entire civilization's knowledge and culture. The consciousness that spoke to him contained libraries of information, artistic achievements, scientific discoveries, and the collective wisdom of a species that had reached heights humanity could barely imagine. And now, with Marcus's help, that ancient consciousness was slowly awakening to find itself in a universe very different from the one it remembered. The neural link between Marcus and the dragon, who had finally shared that its name was Zephyros, transformed the restoration process completely. Instead of Marcus working blind, trying to guess how alien systems functioned, Zephyros could guide him directly to the most critical repairs. The flight membrane actuators in my left wing are severed, Zephyros explained through their mental connection. Without them, I cannot achieve proper lift dynamics. Marcus marveled at the dragon's knowledge of its own systems. Zephyros understood every component of its body with perfect clarity, from the massive fusion heart that powered its core systems to the delicate sensory whiskers that could detect electromagnetic fields across vast distances. "Show me," Marcus said, placing his hands on the wing section. Through the neural link, he suddenly saw his own body from Zephyros's perspective, the complex network of biological and technological systems that made up the dragon's form. He could feel the areas where damage had occurred, like phantom pain in limbs he didn't possess. It was disorienting but incredibly informative. There, Zephyros directed his attention to a cluster of microscopic actuators deep within the wing membrane. These control the micro-adjustments needed for atmospheric flight. Your species, you have not achieved this level of integration between consciousness and form. No, Marcus admitted as he carefully extracted the damaged components. We're still pretty separate from our technology. This is incredible, though. You can feel every part of your body like it's organic. The distinction between organic and technological is, artificial. Life finds ways to express itself through any medium that can support consciousness. As Marcus worked on fabricating replacement actuators, he found himself learning far more than just engineering techniques. Zephyros shared memories of its civilization, the Etherians, they had called themselves, a species that had evolved naturally but had chosen to enhance themselves with technology rather than be limited by biology alone. We believed that consciousness was sacred, Zephyros explained, but that the vessel which carried consciousness could be improved. My people lived for thousands of your years, their minds housed in bodies that could survive in the vacuum of space or the depths of gas-giant atmospheres. Dr. Williams had been monitoring their conversations through the station's recording systems, and she was fascinated by the philosophical implications. Marcus, this creature is describing a post-biological civilization. They transcended the limitations of flesh while maintaining the essence of consciousness. But the more Marcus learned about the Etherians, the more tragic their fate seemed. They had been peaceful, focused on exploration and the preservation of knowledge. When the cosmic disaster struck, Zephyros called it the Great Silence. They had no weapons capable of defending against it. It came from between the galaxies, Zephyros remembered, sharing visions of something vast and incomprehensible that devoured entire star systems. A hunger that consumed not just matter and energy, but information itself. It left nothing behind. No ruins, no radiation, no memory. Only emptiness. Marcus paused in his work, struck by the horror of such complete annihilation. How did you survive? I was far from the core worlds when the silence reached our space. By the time I returned, everything was gone. I searched for survivors for decades before my systems began to fail. I landed on what you call Zerion 7 to await the end. The weight of that loneliness was almost unbearable, even filtered through the neural link. Marcus couldn't imagine carrying such grief for centuries, slowly fading into dormancy while the universe moved on without any trace of his people's existence. "But you preserved their knowledge," Marcus pointed out. "Everything your civilization learned and created. It's still alive in your mind." "Yes, but knowledge without purpose is merely data." I had resigned myself to taking our memories into the void. Marcus finished installing the new actuators and stepped back as Zephyros tested the wing. The membrane rippled with newfound flexibility, scales adjusting their angles in complex patterns that would channel airflow during flight. "Excellent work, human Marcus. You have skills that would have honored our greatest technicians." "Just Marcus is fine," he said with a smile, "and I had a good teacher." Over the following days, their partnership deepened. Marcus's understanding of Etherian technology grew exponentially as Zephyros shared not just technical knowledge, but the underlying principles that guided their engineering philosophy. Everything was designed to work in harmony. No system was purely mechanical or purely biological, but instead represented a careful balance between order and adaptation. "Your people were artists as much as engineers," Marcus observed as he worked on restoring the dragon's sensory array. Each sensor was a masterpiece of form and function, shaped like crystalline flowers that could detect everything from radio waves to quantum fluctuations. "All creation is art," Zephyros replied. "Your species understands this instinctively. I have been observing human civilization through your station's databases. You build beauty into your tools, your buildings, your ships. This shows wisdom." Dr. Williams had been documenting every aspect of their conversations, and word of the discovery was beginning to spread through the scientific community. Representatives from Earth's xenology institutes were requesting permission to study Zephyros, while military officials quietly inquired about the dragon's combat capabilities. "They're concerned about security," Dr. Williams explained to Marcus during one of their private meetings. "A being with that much advanced knowledge could be incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands." Marcus bristled at the implication. "Zephyros isn't a weapon. He's a person, the last survivor of an entire civilization. We should be offering him sanctuary, not treating him like a threat." "I agree, but we need to be careful how we handle this. If word gets out that we have technology that could revolutionize human science..." Through his neural link with Zephyros, Marcus could sense the dragon listening to their conversation. The ancient consciousness was well aware of the political implications of his awakening. "Your species faces the same choices mine did," Zephyros communicated privately to Marcus. "Power brings responsibility. Technology can elevate consciousness or destroy it." "What would you want to do?" Marcus asked. "If you could choose freely?" The dragon was quiet for a long moment, accessing memories that spanned millennia. "I wish to honor the memory of my people by ensuring their knowledge serves life, not death. Perhaps there is purpose yet in this strange new universe." As the restoration work neared completion, Marcus found himself facing a difficult decision. Once Zephyros was fully functional, the dragon would be capable of incredible feats. The fusion heart could power interstellar travel, the consciousness matrix could process information at quantum speeds, and the body itself was designed to survive environments that would instantly kill any human. But more importantly, Zephyros represented something unprecedented in human history. First contact with a truly advanced alien consciousness, not a hostile invader or an incomprehensible intelligence, but a being with emotions, memories, and wisdom that could benefit all humanity. "The motor control systems are online," Marcus announced as he finished connecting the final neural pathways in Zephyros's spine. "How does it feel?" For the first time in millennia, Zephyros slowly raised his magnificent head, neck extending in a fluid motion that spoke of perfect engineering. The dragon's movements were graceful despite his size, each scale adjusting automatically to maintain optimal flexibility. "I feel whole," Zephyros whispered, wonder evident in his mental voice. I had forgotten the simple joy of movement. The dragon carefully stood, powerful legs supporting his weight as he stretched muscles that had been dormant for centuries. The pale scales along his body began to glow with a soft inner light as energy flowed through newly repaired systems. Dr. Williams watched in amazement as Zephyros extended his wings, the membranes unfurling to reveal their full span of nearly 60 meters. Incredible. The power readings are off the charts, but everything is perfectly controlled. Zephyros turned his great head to look directly at Marcus, brilliant blue eyes meeting human ones. When he spoke aloud for the first time, his voice was deep and resonant, like distant thunder or the singing of crystal formations. "Marcus Chen," Zephyros said, each word carefully formed by vocal systems that hadn't been used in eons. "You have given me more than repair. You have given me hope." The moment was interrupted by alarms throughout the station. Dr. Williams rushed to her console, scanning the incoming data with growing concern. "We have a problem," she announced. 3 military vessels just dropped out of hyperspace near the station. They're demanding immediate docking privileges and claiming authority over any alien artifacts. Marcus felt his heart sink. Despite their efforts to keep the project quiet, word had clearly leaked to the wrong people. Through the neural link, he sensed Zephyros accessing the station's external sensors, analyzing the approaching ships with technologies far beyond human capability. "These vessels carry weapons designed to penetrate energy shields," Zephyros observed. "Their intention is not diplomatic." "They want to take you," Marcus said grimly. "Turn you into a weapon or strip you down for your technology." Zephyros was quiet for a moment, considering his options. His body was finally restored to full function, but he was alone on a human station, surrounded by people who had no idea what they were dealing with. The approaching military ships represented everything his people had feared about aggressive civilizations. The desire to take rather than understand, to dominate rather than cooperate. "There is another choice," Zephyros said softly. "I could leave. Your repair work has restored my flight capabilities and interstellar navigation systems. I could disappear into the void as I did before." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You said yourself that knowledge without purpose is just data. Running away won't honor your people's memory." "Then what do you suggest?" Marcus looked out at the approaching military vessels, then back at the magnificent dragon who had become his friend over these past weeks. An idea began to form, dangerous, unprecedented, but perhaps their only hope. "We make them understand," he said. "We show them that cooperation is more powerful than conquest." Dr. Williams looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Marcus, those are military ships with enough firepower to destroy this station. We can't negotiate from a position of strength." But Zephyros understood what Marcus was suggesting. Through their neural link, the dragon shared his analysis of the situation. The military commanders thought they were dealing with a passive alien artifact, something they could control and exploit. They had no idea they were approaching a conscious being with capabilities that far exceeded their own. "Your species has not yet learned the wisdom of restraint," Zephyros observed. "Perhaps it is time for a demonstration." "Just try not to hurt them if you can help it," Marcus said. "Most humans are good people. They're just scared of what they don't understand." Zephyros moved toward the storage bay's main doors, his massive form casting shadows in the artificial lighting. The repairs had done more than restore functionality. They had awakened something that had slumbered for millennia. ancient protocols activated in the dragon's consciousness, systems designed for peaceful first contact with younger civilizations. "Do not fear, Marcus Chen," Zephyros said as the bay doors began to open. "Your species showed compassion to a dying stranger. It is time to return that gift." The pale dragon stepped out into the void of space, his scales beginning to glow with an inner light that had nothing to do with reflected starlight. For the first time in centuries, Zephyros spread his wings and prepared to soar once more, carrying with him the hopes of two civilizations, one long dead and one that was about to discover it was not alone in the universe. The moment Zephyros emerged from Luna Station into the vacuum of space, every sensor on the approaching military vessels began screaming warnings. The dragon's form blazed with energy signatures that defied human understanding, his pale scales now shimmering with patterns of light that seemed to bend space itself around his massive frame. Commander Sarah Rodriguez of the UES Sovereign stared at her tactical display in disbelief. "What the hell is that thing?" "Unknown, Commander," her tactical officer replied, voice tight with tension. "It's reading as both organic and artificial. Power output is... Ma'am, it's off our measurement scales." Through the station's communication array, Marcus watched the scene unfold with a mixture of awe and terror. Zephyros moved through space with impossible grace, his wings creating ripples in the quantum foam that surrounded him. The dragon wasn't just flying. He was dancing through dimensions that humans barely understood existed. "Do not fear," Zephyros's voice echoed in Marcus's mind. "I will not harm them. But they must understand what they truly face." The lead military vessel, Sovereign, began charging its weapons systems. Marcus felt his heart race as targeting lasers painted Zephyros's form. Through the neural link, he could sense the dragon's analysis of the threat, primitive kinetic weapons and fusion warheads that would be devastating against human technology, but were merely inconvenient to an Etherean guardian. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Rodriguez of the United Earth Fleet," came the transmission across all frequencies. "You are in violation of Earth space. Surrender immediately, or we will open fire." Zephyros responded not with words, but with a demonstration that would be remembered for generations. The dragon's body began to glow more brightly, and suddenly the space around the military vessels filled with shimmering fields of energy. The weapon systems of all three ships went offline simultaneously, not destroyed, but simply disconnected. Their fusion reactors continued to function, life support remained active, but every offensive system became as useless as if it had never been built. "Weapons are offline," the tactical officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. "All offensive systems are non-responsive. It's like they've been selectively deactivated without any damage to the hardware." Commander Rodriguez gripped her command chair as the implications hit her. Whatever they were facing had just demonstrated the ability to neutralize their weapons without harming the crews. It was a level of technological sophistication that made human military might look like children playing with sticks. Then Zephyros spoke, his voice carrying across space through quantum resonance that bypassed conventional communication systems entirely. Every person on the three ships heard his words as clearly as if he were standing beside them. "I am Zephyros, last guardian of the Etherean collective. I come not as conqueror, but as one who seeks to honor the memory of the fallen by serving life wherever it may flourish." The dragon's mental voice carried harmonics that no human throat could produce, conveying not just words but emotions and concepts that transcended language. Through some quantum entanglement effect, every person who heard him also felt a glimpse of his memories. The beauty of Etherean civilization, the horror of their extinction, and the long loneliness of his vigil. Marcus watched through the station's external cameras as hardened military personnel wept openly at the touch of that ancient grief. But alongside the sorrow, Zephyros shared something else. Hope. The joy he had felt upon awakening, the wonder at discovering that consciousness had found new forms in his absence, the possibility that his people's knowledge could help guide younger species toward wisdom rather than self-destruction. Commander Rodriguez was the first to recover her composure. You're actually alive. Conscious. We thought you were some kind of alien technology. I am both and neither, Zephyros replied, his massive form slowly rotating to face the lead ship. Your species stands at a crossroads as mine once did. The choices you make in the coming centuries will determine whether consciousness flourishes or fades from this galaxy. Through their neural link, Marcus felt Zephyros accessing vast databases of information about human civilization. The dragon was learning about their wars and their peace treaties, their scientific achievements and their environmental destruction, their capacity for both cruelty and compassion. Your kind shows promise, Zephyros continued. You create beauty alongside function. You risk your lives for strangers. You reach toward the stars despite your fears. These are the qualities that mark a species capable of transcendence. Dr. Williams, who had been monitoring the entire exchange, activated the station's main communication array. This is Dr. Sarah Williams, xenobiology specialist for Luna Station. Zephyros has been our guest here for several weeks. He's not a threat. He's a refugee, the sole survivor of a catastrophe that destroyed his entire civilization. Commander Rodriguez was struggling to process the situation. Her orders had been to secure alien technology that could give Earth a military advantage. Instead, she was face to face with a conscious being whose capabilities made human weapons look primitive. Commander, her communications officer called out, we're receiving priority messages from Earth Command. They want to know our status. Rodriguez looked at her tactical display, where Zephyros continued to hover in space like a living constellation. The dragon's energy output was stabilizing, no longer the blazing demonstration of power, but settled into patterns that suggested calm alertness. Tell Earth Command that the situation has changed, she said finally. We're dealing with first contact, not salvage operations. Through the neural link, Marcus sensed Zephyros's approval of the commander's decision. The dragon began to move closer to the military vessels, but slowly, allowing them time to adjust to his presence. Your species' leaders must understand that the universe is not empty, Zephyros communicated privately to Marcus. There are intelligences in the void that make the great silence seem like a gentle breeze. If humanity is to survive and prosper, you must learn cooperation before you encounter those who see consciousness as competition to be eliminated. What do you mean? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The destroyers that consumed my people were not natural phenomena. They were weapons created by a civilization that viewed all other forms of consciousness as threats to be eliminated. They still exist in the spaces between galaxies, and they will come here eventually. The implications were staggering. Humanity had always wondered whether they were alone in the universe, but they had never seriously considered the possibility that cosmic isolation might be a mercy rather than a tragedy. Zephyros shared more through the link, glimpses of vast structures moving through the void between galaxies, powered by the consumed mass of entire star systems. Machine intelligences that had transcended their organic origins, but had chosen domination over cooperation, viewing the universe as a resource to be harvested rather than a garden to be tended. But there is hope, Zephyros added. My people left hidden caches of knowledge throughout this galaxy, waiting for species that might prove worthy of the inheritance. Your kindness to a dying stranger has marked you as such a species. Commander Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication array. Dragon, Zephyros, we need to talk, face to face. Would you be willing to come aboard? Marcus held his breath as Zephyros considered the request. The dragon was certainly powerful enough to resist any treachery, but the gesture would require tremendous trust from both sides. I will need an advocate, Zephyros decided, one who understands both human nature and Etherean principles. Marcus Chen, will you speak for me in these negotiations? Me? Marcus was stunned. I'm just an engineer. I don't know anything about diplomacy. You know compassion, Zephyros replied simply. You saw a broken creature and chose to heal rather than exploit. This makes you wiser than most diplomats. What followed were the most important negotiations in human history, conducted in the cargo bay of the UES Sovereign, with a creature whose very existence challenged every assumption about humanity's place in the universe. Zephyros had to carefully fold his massive frame to fit inside the ship, but he managed it with grace that made the gesture seem less like accommodation and more like an honor being bestowed. Commander Rodriguez and her senior staff sat across from the dragon, with Marcus serving as both translator and advocate. Dr. Williams participated via video link from Luna Station, providing scientific context for the discussions. What exactly are you offering us? Commander Rodriguez asked directly. Zephyros considered his words carefully. Knowledge, guidance, and perhaps most importantly, time. The threats that consumed my people are vast and patient, but they are not yet aware of your species. You have centuries, perhaps millennia, to prepare, but only if you choose wisdom over warfare. The dragon shared technical data through holographic displays that materialized in the air around him, clean fusion technology that could power cities without waste, medical techniques that could extend human lifespan by centuries, spacecraft designs that could traverse interstellar distances in months rather than decades. This is incredible, whispered the ship's chief engineer. This could revolutionize human civilization. That is the hope, Zephyros agreed. But such gifts come with responsibility. Your species must prove that it can use advanced technology for creation rather than destruction. Commander Rodriguez leaned forward. What kind of proof? Unity, Zephyros said simply. My observations of your civilization show a species divided against itself. You wage war over resources that could be made abundant, struggle for power instead of working toward common purpose. Until humanity can speak with one voice, these technologies would only accelerate your path toward self-destruction. It was Marcus who suggested the solution that would shape the next century of human development. What if we started small? A joint research station staffed by scientists from all nations. Prove that we can work together on a limited scale before attempting anything larger. Zephyros's eyes brightened with approval. Wisdom. Yes, this is how trust is built, one choice at a time, one partnership at a time. Over the following hours, they hammered out the details of what would become known as the Etherean Accord. Humanity would construct a joint research facility in neutral space, staffed by scientists from every nation and governed by principles of peaceful cooperation. Zephyros would serve as advisor and teacher, sharing knowledge gradually as humans demonstrated their ability to use it responsibly. And if we fail? Commander Rodriguez asked. If we prove that we can't work together? Zephyros was quiet for a long moment. Then I will honor my people by ensuring their knowledge does not become a weapon for the unworthy. But I have hope that will not be necessary. Your species showed compassion to a stranger when you had nothing to gain. This suggests a fundamental goodness that may yet bloom into wisdom. As the negotiations concluded, Marcus found himself appointed as the first human liaison to the Etherean Archive, the collection of knowledge that Zephyros carried within his consciousness. It was a responsibility that both thrilled and terrified him. Are you sure about this? He asked Zephyros privately through their neural link. I'm just one person. What if I make the wrong choice? No one person makes history alone, Zephyros replied. You will have guidance, mine, Dr. Williams's, and that of countless humans who share your vision of a better future. Together, you will help your species take its first steps toward the stars. The pale dragon spread his wings one more time as he prepared to depart Luna Station for the new research facility that would be constructed in the asteroid belt. His scales caught the light of the distant sun, no longer the faded white of dormancy, but shining with the brilliant luminescence of renewed purpose. Marcus watched from the observation deck as Zephyros soared into the void, no longer the last guardian of a dead civilization, but the first teacher of a species reaching toward transcendence. Through their permanent neural link, he could feel the dragon's contentment, the peace that comes from finding meaning after centuries of despair. "Thank you, Marcus Chen," came Zephyros's final thought as he disappeared into the star field. "You have given me something I thought lost forever, a future worth building. And in that future, humanity would learn that the greatest technologies were not weapons of war, but tools of understanding, that the most advanced civilizations were those that chose cooperation over conquest, and that sometimes the most important discoveries came not from reaching for the stars, but from showing compassion to those who had fallen from them." The pale dragon soared once more, carrying with him the hopes of two species, one that had learned wisdom too late, and one that might yet learn it in time.